Any questions today? Krishna and Shani's doing that, Standavat. Ash is saying she
I
wants.
have one thing.
Oh, thank you, Ash. That's great to hear. And welcome, Dana. Gangalila has a topic.
Maybe, I'm not sure if that's something, and I brought it up like that time we were on a call. It's, this whole, in Vedic astrology, we are in this eclipse season, how to go on about it, how serious to be about it, and what Gurudev is advising, and I cannot hear enough of that. If that's something, interesting.
Eclipse. Well, I mean, I like Mahaprabhu's take on the eclipse, that everyone's like generally in the Vedic. Wow, Marie, you made sabudana khichdi? Respect. That's difficult. Marie's telling us what she cooked on Gurpanima. How beautiful. That's very special. Very nice. Congratulations. I mean, I like Mahaprabhu's take on eclipses, right? That generally in the Vedic culture, eclipses are considered inauspicious. But Mahaprabhu's, see, there are two ways of considering things. This is, I mean, it's a good topic for discussion because it's not just about eclipses. This is touching on a wider subject. And we can frame it this way. There's consideration of saguna and there's consideration of nirguna, right? So saguna means under the influence of the modes of material nature, right? Literally sa with guna, the material qualities. So with the material qualities, affected by the material qualities of the nature of the mundane modes of nature, namely sattva, raja, and tama, right? Goodness, passion, and ignorance. So these are sometimes, the word guna, it's an interesting word. Guna means rope. Sorry, I meant to say it the other way around. Guna means qualities, nature, but another meaning of guna is rope. And sometimes these gunas are described as ropes of the material energy that are like binding people in this world, right? And so everything in this world can be classified under one of these energies or a mixture of all three. Our personalities will be a mix. Some will be predominantly sattvic in the mode of goodness with some touch of raja and tama, passion and ignorance. Some may be predominantly tama, right, mode of ignorance, and so on. Everything in this world, different activities, different foods, and this is something discussed in Bhagavad Gita fairly extensively, right? And so generally in the Vedic culture, in the Brahminical culture, persons are trying to live a sattvic life as much as possible and avoiding things of a lower saguna nature, right? Trying to keep a clean environment in order to minimize karmic reactions and ultimately move closer towards the divine, towards the absolute, right? So this is the whole saguna world, right? Now nirguna, then nirguna comes along, and this is something completely independent. Nirguna literally means, I'm so glad you brought this topic up, Gangalila. So nirguna literally means without gunas, right? Without nir, it's negating, right? Guna, without the modes of material nature. This is nirguna. And then we translate that as transcendental. What that refers to, practically and essentially speaking, means what is transcendental or what is beyond, what is transcending these modes of material nature. And that means the Supreme Lord. Right? Anything connected with that central current, with the central current of divinity, that is nirguna. Anything with Krishna's touch. And these are two completely categorically different things. And nirguna will always, in every instance, override what is saguna. And nirguna can be very, this can take shape in very radical, unexpected ways sometimes, right? And so our Gurudev, he liked very much that pastime. It's mentioned in Mahabharata, I believe, of that hunter, right? That hunter who, he's kind of a low-class man, you could say, a good mix of rajas, and probably predominantly rajas, mode of passion, with some touch of sattva and tama, right? And but the nirguna flow is independent. It doesn't care about those things actually. Nirguna has its own rules, right? And nirguna can sometimes move in completely opposite to general saguna rules. And so this hunter, somehow or other, he comes across this stone, which he thinks, oh, this will be very good as a weight that I can use on my scales for weighing meat, right? And so he's using this stone to weigh meat on his scales in his meat shop. Turns out it's actually a Shalagram Shila. It's a deity of Lord Vishnu. And there's a very proper Brahmin, perfectly following Sattva Guna, highest level in the Saguna plane. He comes along and you can recognize by the markings, those who are expert. And he naturally became very angry and chastising the hunter. Oh, what are you doing, you ignorant man? This is a deity of Lord Vishnu, and you can't treat this like this. And so he took that Shalagram Shila to his home and worshipped him according to all the rules and regulations. And it's very elaborate. Worshipping a Shalagram Shila is no joke. It involves a lot of strict regulations. And so that Brahmin followed all these proper procedures, mantras and timing and so on. Then he has a dream that night, and the Lord appeared to him and said, what have you done? I was having a very good time. On that was a very nice swing for me, going up and down on those scales. There was that man, although materially he was disqualified. Materially, he was a low man, had some violent nature and ignorant nature. Perhaps not even so much of a violent nature, but just continuing with his family practice. We don't know. But in any case, not a high-class person, not an educated person, not a clean person. But there was something in his heart that attracted the Lord, some simple-heartedness, some natural affection, some humility. Something in his heart attracted the Lord. And whereas that Brahmin, although he was behaving very perfectly, according to all the considerations of the Saguna plane, observing all the rules of Sattva Guna, observing all the scriptural regulations and so on, the Lord was not attracted to him. Perhaps some arrogance was there, or his good action was based on external considerations only, some absence of heart, And so the Lord was not attracted there. And so he told him, bring me back. I was very happy with that hunter. So our Gurudev would tell this story to illustrate, right, that the Nirguna plane is not bound by any law. The Nirguna plane is independent and runs according to a different set of rules. Okay? And so, and the practice of, and this is also kind of like a dividing point between like general Vedic religion and then Krishna consciousness and the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? It's a movement based on the essence of religion and actually developing a loving relationship with the Lord. So that's connecting with the Nirguna plane, and that transcends anything of the Saguna plane, right? And so now if we come to this discussion of eclipses, this is all pertaining to the Saguna plane. Oh, there's some impurity, some inauspiciousness at the time of an eclipse. And so, so then persons will try to avoid or take different measures or don't do certain things on those days and so on, right? But that's all under the Saguna heading. Krishna consciousness is under the Nirguna heading. So then do we care? Not so much, not so much. There may be some consideration, because here's another consideration, right? We are not fully, it's not that we're totally free from the Saguna plane, right? We're still, and we don't want to pretend that we're not. We're still living with within the plane of karma, right? We're still dealing with action, the plane of action and reaction, right? We still have to, work, we may have to work a job and, be successful in our business and take care of our family, right? So there may be some consideration of various Saguna elements, and perhaps there will be some consideration, on an eclipse, we don't do such and such, But predominantly, we're trying to remain aloof from these things. We're taking shelter of Krishna. We're taking shelter of Guru and Vaishnava. We're depending on them. And it's not a straightforward matter, because everything depends on our genuine faith, right? How much genuine faith do we have in the shelter, the value of the shelter of Guru and Vaishnava? But the more that we genuinely have faith in the lotus feet of Guru and Vaishnava, Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, so much we will have their protection, their genuine protection. Right. But, how that protection plays out, that may not be according to what we consider it to be. That's another thing, right? So what can I say? Maybe we'll take in some, I mean, personally, I'm not even aware of eclipses and all that. I only know, what do I know? No, I don't, I really have no idea. I know Gaur Purnima is full moon. I know Krishna Mahaprabhu was born in the time of an eclipse. I know that. And sometimes I hear when people mention, there's an eclipse, and I know. But otherwise, I really have no idea. But at the same time, I have a bit of a privileged life. I don't have to go out and deal with the world so much. I have the privilege of being able to just focus on my spiritual practice, So what can I say? If that's something that comes naturally to you, then just go with it. I wouldn't get too obsessive about it. But like my mother, she's an astrologer. So she's naturally, in that world. It's something that, she's been involved with for like 20 or 30 years, There's no need to, and our Gurudev, he was aware of astrology. So but another thing too is that, we don't want to be artificial, right? It's like with like sometimes I feel our devotees get a little too fanatic about the Thursday Barbella thing, like I liked one comment that Akinsha Marsh, one of our sannyasis, made once. He's like, like we're born into such a gross culture. Like these are things that are considerations for like real Brahmins. Like they're like living on a much more subtle plane, and they'll actually feel like the influence of these different energies and planets. But we're born into, like a mlecha, gross Western culture, and then we're going to get all funny about all these, these little fine, subtle things. And Gurudev wasn't so, he wasn't so, it's not something he emphasized. Janardhan Maharaj said he asked Gurudev once something about that Thursday Barbella, and our Gurudev was like, on Thursday afternoon, the train is still full. Like life goes on, life goes on. Maybe some consideration, but we don't need to get obsessive. And our Gurudev, he was actually born into a Brahmin family, right? And all these things are actually meaningful to him. Like in a little untouched village in West Bengal, within Gauda Mandal, the birthplace, the region of Mahaprabhu's birthplace, he's really a part of that whole culture. And our Gurudev, it was something that was meaningful to him. Like he would check, he generally wouldn't go out without checking the Panjaka, right? The astrological calculations. He would time things. Like he's living on this more subtle plane, and that's meaningful to him. But he could also sometimes just throw those things out the window, So it's, there's no black and white here, and I would say as much as it feels like genuinely meaningful to you, then you observe, give some attention to these things, but don't let it rule your life, don't become obsessive about it. But if to deny it, like if it's something that you're concerned about and then you try to like ignore it, that's also going to cause disturbance. Right. Sridhar, she had this comment about the Varnashrama system, which our Gurudev liked very much, and he took note of it. Harmonious dealings sympathetic dealings with nature. That was it. Sympathetic dealings with nature means that we are, our highest goal is the service of Guru and Gauranga, right? But at the same time, we have some particular mundane nature. And we don't need to forcefully deny that, but we just recognize it for what it is, right? Everyone has some different mundane nature that they're drawn towards, some particular type of work, some particular hobby, some, family life or no family life. That may just be, to be a brahmachari, that may just be your mundane nature, right? To be detached, to be a householder, that may just be a mundane nature, and it may not, right? How much is actually coming out of real spiritual feeling, right? So we have some particular mundane nature, and we cannot artificially deny that. We harmonize with that. So if you feel some concern about all these things, then you can, get into it. Like my mother, like, she gets into astrology, but then she'll also be like, but the mercy of Guru can just override everything. So actually, we don't really know. She can give like a whole analysis of something from an astrological point of view, and then ultimately it's in Krishna's hands, so it doesn't matter. Like, like you take these things with a pinch of salt, keep them in their place, right? So there's no black and white. I really appreciated our Gurudev's nature, like he followed sometimes he would observe these things, sometimes not. He was always the Paramahamsa, right? This is the nature of the Paramahamsa. They're always looking to the essence of things, right? So sometimes he might follow these Brahminical things, other times he might just make fun of them, like we heard from Madhusudana Maharaj one time, just before he left for a world tour, he's in Calcutta having breakfast. He deliberately eats his morning breakfast with his left hand, right? Which is considered very unclean. Right? And then he's, like very deliberately in saying, I am going to the Mlecha countries. I'm guru of the Mlecha people, so I'll eat like this, Like sometimes he could just totally poo-poo the whole Brahminical thing, right? And then other times he would give it, give it some honor, some attention. I heard one very interesting thing I heard from Ahasa Priya Prabhu. He told me one time when our Gurudev was kind of musing over like what to do about the succession. Oh, who should I make my successor? There was one period for some years, he was considering this. And this one, Ahasa Priya told me that one time our Gurudev, I won't say the name, but he mentioned one sannyasi who comes from a Brahmin family. And our Gurudev, he said very seriously, oh, maybe I should choose him because he's a Brahmin and Krishna likes the Brahmins. He said like that. Krishna likes the Brahmins. And, so sometimes he would give honor to that whole culture. Other times he could completely dismiss it, completely dismiss it. Once when he was in Russia, he made this very interesting comment. This is also, part of this whole Saguna and Nirguna discussion. He said, a Brahmin is only clean until they leave their home. Very interesting point, right? A Brahmin is only clean until they leave their home, right? Because that Brahminical cleanliness, it's based on some external factors, right? But spiritual, but the touch of, for example, Harinam, that is the Nirguna plane. That purifies you at the deepest level, right? So you can do everything perfectly according to the Brahminical standard, and then one little thing will come along and it's all over, right? So yeah, there's kind of like this bit of a dance that goes on between these two considerations, right? Within our, here in our ashram here in Hungary, now we've just, Giriraj has mercifully come, to preside over the ashram, and we have kind of like a simple home style arrangement here, so we're not following all the Brahmin. And I was raised in a Vaishnava family. I mean, I grew up in temples, and not so much in temples, but going to temples. And in our home, we followed a fairly high standard. And so, I'm pretty familiar, pretty steeped in it all. Sri Lekha was my Sunday school teacher, and, and my parents, trained in ISKCON and everything. And, I have a pretty good idea of what is a standard. And here we're not always able to follow. It's just we don't have a proper setup. It's a little simple. And sometimes I'm trying to make things a little better. And other times I'm thinking, well, it's, Giriraj is very merciful. I'm thinking like that. And ultimately he's accepting our heart. Maybe we cannot perfectly do everything, but he's very merciful, and he's a Bhava Grahi Janardana. This is name of the Lord. Bhava Grahi Janardana means the Lord who accepts the heart of the devotee. So, there's always this kind of dance that goes on between these two sides, in our spiritual life, right? There's an element of the vidhi, and there's and we're allowed a little element of the raga too, that more spontaneous aspect. And our Gurudev mentioned also, Western devotees, they're very qualified for raga marg, right? cannot do so much vidhi marg, And in one way, very good. Maybe sometimes not so good. But what can we do? The Lord is merciful. Guru is merciful. So anyway, it's quite a deep topic. But I can say, ultimately we're depending on the mercy of the Lord, mercy of Guru Gauranga. We know that that's our final that's our first consideration, our last consideration. And in the middle, we may consider a few other things, but in the end of the day, we know what our identity is, right? Jiver Srupahoy Krishna Nitya Das. We are eternal servants of Krishna, and ultimately we are taking shelter of him. So yeah, that's my answer. It's a nice topic. It's a big topic. We did have a few things in the chat here. Thursday, huh? Some quote about Thursdays. Interesting. What is the Thursday Barbella? Yeah, Brihaspati Chinmoy Puthar. I've never fully understood it, but it's a particular time period on a Thursday afternoon. I think it would be slightly different every Thursday, but approximately from 1 or 2 p.m. to 5 or 6 p.m., something like that. And it's considered inauspicious in some way, and it's recommended that you don't go out at that time, but you stay at home and engage in your spiritual practice. Something like that. I've never had a very clear explanation. I've never dug into it too much. So, it's recommended not to go out, not to start something. There are actually other astrological periods, I think there's a Rahu period, almost every day. There are actually other periods which are also inauspicious, but somehow this Barbella has been given a lot of attention. And, our gurus followed it to some extent. And I have heard that Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, he kind of he had kind of like a work around it. Like if, for example, if he had to travel on a Thursday afternoon, which generally wouldn't be advised, he would like do something to symbolize starting his journey, like putting his bag by the door or something like that, putting his coat out, or he'd do something to kind of say in the morning time, like, go, now I'm starting my journey. But then he'd actually go out in the afternoon. So, you know, there are workarounds, loopholes. Does that help, Gangalila?
Thank you, Vishakha. Yeah, one of those things was that in my heart, in my belly, anything below my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I like that there is some standards, but I'm also covered by more. So there is these ideas, you know, what not to do and what to do, but I can also let that go. And then especially around in these eclipses, they say like, don't start anything new, don't sign any contracts. So I had one roommate moving out. I have a roommate moving in. They're coming by today. They already paid the deposit. And it's just like, it has to be today, the day that he'll sign the contract.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, I'm not postponing it because of the eclipse, you know, but I'm also realizing, oh my God, it's exactly what they advise against, and I have to do it. And so I'm thinking, while I was listening to you, I was thinking like, okay, I can find that in my heart to completely let that go. And then I was thinking like, maybe I'll just in my head, in my heart, I'll do like a little chant over the contract and just let it go.
Yeah. There's also another principle that comes from Ravana, interestingly. You know, Ravana, he says, he had this one statement. It was when Ravana's like on his deathbed, right? He's about to leave the world. But you know, okay, Ravana was a demon, but he was quite learned in like what's called Rajaniti, means something like politics or something like that. But I'm sure there's a better way to translate it. Affairs of state and different moral codes also. Srila Maharaj made one interesting point that the demons often, they're often like moral learned persons, but they are against Vishnu. Like more on the mundane side, they may be qualified, but they're anti-Vishnu. But of course, Ravana, he was just bad. But anyway, he had some type of mundane qualification. And so Ramachandra is very interesting. He sent Lakshman to him to learn something from him before he dies. And we hear Lakshman goes to see him, and he stands at his head, and he requests Ravana, oh, can you give me some instruction? And it's so beautiful, actually, this type of like non-envious and like broad attitude, right? This is your arch enemy you've just kind of killed, but we can get over that, we can still talk, right? So Lakshman goes and he asks Ravan, standing in his head. Ravan doesn't reply. So then Lakshman goes back to Ramachandra. Oh, he wouldn't answer. And Ramachandra said, oh, well, did you stand at his feet? No, I stood at his head. You need to go stand at his feet. You're asking him for instruction. So he goes back to Ravan, stands at his feet. Oh, please, can you give me some instruction? And he says some very interesting things. And one thing that he says, and these are points that were appreciated by Srila Sridhar Maharaj and Srila Govinda Maharaj. And one of them was, what is auspicious, do immediately. What is auspicious, you should do immediately. Do not delay. But what is inauspicious, you should wait. Hesitate, put on pause. Don't rush to act. And there were some things that he talked about doing, which he'd put off. Like there was something like a staircase to heaven that he talked about building, and he'd postponed it. And then when it came to like attacking Ramachandra, all his advisors had warned him against it, but he'd rushed into it, and he understood how foolish that was, right? So this was the principle that he gave. What is auspicious? You do immediately, no consideration. What is inauspicious? You wait and see, right? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj added to that, wait and see what is the divine will. So I would say in your situation, I think that principle would override anything else. I know how much you've been in need of a co-renter there. So very auspicious for you. Just don't think, go for it. and if things turn out to be bad, that's okay. You're still an eternal servant of Krishna. You're still, you understand what's really important. You're still connected to Guru and Gauranga. You can still practice Krishna consciousness. You can still chant every day. You can still tune into some Hari Katha. And it's okay. You got it's not the be all and the end all, right? That's what we understand, right? It's not the be all and the end all. So.
I got it. Thank you.
And then our Gurudev, he liked this, he had another phrase. It's from some type of Bengali literature, I believe. Sahasa vidari tanakriyam. Like not to rush into any action. Wait and see. But that particularly for something inauspicious, or once he said for quarrel, and especially for quarrel, said. But if something is looking auspicious, then immediately go for it. And of course, this is jumping a little high, but I'm on this subject, I'm remembering the cowherd boys of Vrindavan, right? This is part of Rakshishyatiti Vishvaso, right? Confidence in the Lord's protection. I may screw up a little here and there. Things may go wrong, but it's okay. Krishna's with me. Krishna's my friend. They have that spirit, and we hear that when they're going into, when they come across, one of those demon forms, one of the demon friends of Kamsa, right, who he sends to Vrindavan, then he's in this form. I forget the name. Is it Aghasur? Maybe it's Aghasur, the giant serpent form. And he's so big that you can't even see clearly what it is, right? And so we hear the cowherd boys, they come across this gigantic, horrible form. And they kind of look at it like it's an amusement park, right? Like, oh, this looks interesting. These giant fangs and this gaping hole, and there's this strange smell coming out. It's like, like they have an amusement park. It's like a horror haunted house, right? Or I don't know. They're like intrigued by it. And then there's this gaping hole. They don't know where it's going. Like, oh, should we go and check it out? And then someone was saying, well, I don't know. It doesn't look so safe. It's a little dark and stinky in there. But then they conclude, oh, but if anything goes wrong, Krishna will come and help us out. Krishna's our friend, right? Krishna's our friend. Krishna will help us if anything goes wrong. So this is a beautiful spirit to have. Srila Maharshi made this one interesting comment once too, saying that a temple manager, they may have an element of carelessness in them because, they're not seeing everything as running fully under them. But Krishna will manage, right? They don't need to be so obsessive, micromanaging everything, but leave things a little bit up to the divine will, right? Leave things up to the divine will, Krishna's plan. There may be an element of carelessness. So Krishna will take care. Krishna's hand is in the background, right? Krishna's hand is in the background. There was this one meeting with the GBC, and they met with Srila Sridhar Maharaj in there, and they mentioned him. Oh, we're having our annual meetings. They have their leaders around the world coming. They're going to meet him, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he told them, that's fine. You can have your meetings, but don't forget to include the, the Krishna factor. It says something like that, like that element of leave some space for Krishna's will to come through, right? That unexpected, unknown element, factor X, right? The X factor. What is Krishna's will? Leave some space for that. Don't be too controlling, too mechanical about everything, right? But leave some space for the Krishna's will to come through. So we don't want to we don't want to be too fixed in anything in our lives, right? Or to think, oh, it has to be exactly like this, or has to be exactly like that. Or be too fixed in any plan, right? Try to leave some space, some openness for the Lord's will to come through, right? And then in that way, we won't be disappointed also, right? It's not like some karmic transaction. I'm doing this and expecting that result, and making this plan and expecting it to play out like that, right? But well, I'm just trying to see what is the higher will. And I'm thinking maybe this is right, but maybe it's not. I'll try this out and then see how things are flowing, right? We don't need to have too fixed expectations, right, about anything. It is a very free way to live, right? We're just trying to move in consonance, trying to see which way is the Lord's will. And sometimes we may get it wrong, we may make mistakes, but that's okay. We can correct ourselves, right? We can correct ourselves. Anyone else have any thoughts on that subject or another topic? And welcome, Julian has joined us.
Didi, there is that story of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he was a magistrate and he had that imposter who thought he was Bhagavan, and
Right.
he had the power even to curse Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had that type of power. Everyone was afraid of him, hair on fire in the courtroom and everything. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur realized he needed to shave his head, but no Indian man would touch him. But he told the British people to do it, and they did it. And he said it's because they are malechas, and it will his power will have no effect on them. So maybe we got some protection because we're malechas. We don't have to worry so much.
I heard Gurudev also, someone told me recently, was it Madhusudana Maharaj? That one time when he went to the West, he said like, oh, Barbella doesn't work here. He made some comment like that, like those rules don't work here, That's interesting. I didn't hear that part of the story that he said his power wouldn't work on the Westerners. That's interesting. I remember like the Indians were really superstitious and afraid, and that's interesting. Yeah, that's a nice mention there. Also, because one thing that struck me about that is that even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because he's connecting with the mundane environment, he had to suffer a little bit, like on some level, right? Even though he's on such a high nirguna plane, right? That was interesting. But of course, ultimately, he overcame that. Anyone else have any other comments or another topic?
Dandavas Vishakha Devi.
Oh,
This is
Dandavad
Ramananda.
Ramananda Prabhu.
I heard one story of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that he wanted to go to Vrindavan. Then he had dream that he has service there, so he should stay there. So he went to Tarkeshwar and he's.
Oh, you've muted yourself, Prabhu. Oh.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, yesterday I went to Sokhel, was nice program for Gaur Purnima.
Oh, nice, nice. Very nice.
Dandavas.
Dandavad Ramananda Prabhu. Well, well, maybe just I'll share a few reflections. Gaur Purnima, right? For me, my favorite reflection at this time is, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his appearance. I see it as a demonstration of the victory of dedication, sacrifice, devotion, right? And it's a supreme demonstration of the dignity of servitude, right? How glorious that is, right? In this world, we are afraid of that, right? We are afraid of submission, servitude, sacrifice. These are things that are seen as like a type of weakness or inferior, right? But actually, it is a very glorious and dignified position. And, Krishna, he himself, the supreme absolute truth, he's seeing that, oh, Radharani, her position, she's in a better position than mine, right? She is serving me. She is offering to me. She's giving everything for me, but she's getting more fulfillment, more joy than I myself am in receiving that, right? And so then he himself wants to explore that position, and he wants to also celebrate her devotion, right? And so he's coming in this world, and there's this beautiful song by Vasudev Ghosh that was very favorite to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Jari Gaur na hoto tobe ki hoito kemane doritam de radhar mahima prema rasasima jagata janata ke, right? That if Mahaprabhu, he's saying like Mahaprabhu's spreading the glories of Radharani in this world, right? If Mahaprabhu had not come, we would not know the glories of Radharani. So this is one of the prime purposes of Mahaprabhu's appearance in this world, to spread the glories of his devotee, right? He wants to glorify the position of his devotee. So how glorious, how dignified, how noble it is to take the position of a servant, right? To offer oneself in a posture of submission, right? This is a very glorious and noble thing, right? Although the whole world may tell us otherwise, but it is not something to be afraid of. It is something to embrace. And what's more, what's the most essential point here is that we will actually discover ourselves, because that is who we are constitutionally. Right? Krishna is constitutionally the enjoyer, and we are constitutionally to be enjoyed. So it works for him to enjoy. It doesn't work for our enjoyment, comes through supplying enjoyment. And so by embracing our natural identity, we will discover ourselves. We will not lose ourselves by sacrifice. We will gain, and we will uncover the true self. So this is a wonderful time to reflect on that point. Mm-hmm. Right. Let's see any other messages here. Our group. Mm-hmm. Oh, Dana has a nice comment here. I was reminded this morning, all our circumstances are meant to bring us closer to Krishna. Oh, that's very beautiful. And such an expression, that shows high faith. That's not an easy statement to make. But when we have some real faith in our heart, then we will feel that. Nothing is happening by accident, and nothing's also happening just by some arbitrary machine, right? Some justice machine, but there's a conscious, loving designer behind everything, right? And everything is conspiring to help us, actually. The environment is conspiring to uplift us and ultimately bring us closer to Krishna. So it is a difficult challenge that we have to face every day. But if we can really embrace that truth, then our path will be smooth. Our path will be smooth. That is our ticket to liberation. That was a comment of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. That is the key to liberation. This is that expression, right? Tate nukampam, that famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the ticket to liberation, to embrace that spirit. That the environment is friendly to me. I am at fault, right? I only need to adjust my own self. This is a bitter pill, but it is a medicinal pill. And one that we have an opportunity to take at every moment, right? How can I adjust myself? How can I adjust myself? All right. Well, anyone have any final comments or question, or should we stop there for today? Julian, anything you want to share or any question you have? Julian's being quiet. Okay, well, Chinmoy, for any last words for our group today? We close there a few minutes early.
No, just dandavats to everyone, pranams, and I hope everyone had a very happy Guru Purnima.
Jai.
Yeah.
Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Gaur Avirbhav Mahamahotsav ki Jai, Jagannath Mishra Der Anandotsav ki Jai, all the assembled devotees, sincere seekers ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Jai Vishakha Devi Dasi ki Jai.
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 Thank you for your association, Didi.
And so next week, those on the Europe side will go back to the normal time.
I'm getting so confused with these time changes.
Yeah, because this Sunday, Europe is going to make their change.
Okay.
So we'll be back to the normal 7 p.m. for Italy and Hungary, and everywhere else on this side of the globe. We'll go back to the normal time.
And can I ask, the video darshan, is that going to be is that a regular day now, regular time?
We're kind of just doing it spontaneously. But I'm thinking this Saturday or Sunday we'll do it again.
Okay.
Do you have any preference?
As you like, whatever's it works for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can join, then that's wonderful too.
I looked at the time for the last one. I was like, oh, I'm going to join, and I was going to join, and then I realized at 7:30 it was actually started at 6:30. So.
Oh yeah, the whole time. Oh dear.
So yes, now I'm definitely going to try to join the next one if I'm available.
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome. That would be
Okay.
awesome. Okay, dandavats to all.
Dandavats, everyone.
Dandavas.
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Dandavats Prabhu.
Dandavas. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.